Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. We got Zazan the Unkillable released today, and I'm very excited to talk about this character. Obviously, we don't really know anything about his AI yet, so a lot remains to be seen in terms of how he actually plays out into things, but we can make some educated guesses, and I am excited because the dark meta overtook Japan at this time for so long that it does appear as though Gumi is actively trying to stop that, and Zazan's introduction seems to be part of that, so we'll get into how and why and where his influence might be felt the most. So, jumping into the review breakdown, it's going to be a character overview, report card, and character stat analysis, which is really the bread and butter of the whole review, general thoughts as well, and then I'll talk more intricately about the class and job overview, and then get into Esper, vision card, and weapon synergies, most notably which ones I like the best, and then some thoughts on some counters and builds, just kind of open forum talking about it. So, getting into it, the character overview, new Earth element unit, his jobs, they created the Undying Fighter for him. He's a Viking and Paladin sub-job as well. Weapon is a Ninja Blade, surprisingly. That's actually kind of a demerit to his overall kit, but long story short, he's still pretty damn good. The equips hat, cloth, and accessory with a move of 4 and a jump of 2, so a ton of mobility. Weaknesses, 10% to wind, 20% to lightning, no surprise there, but the weapon resistances are actually very impressive. 15% resistance to slash, and then 10% both to magic and missile, with the weakest being 10% to pierce, only 5% to strike. No one cares about strike, it's not that impactful, but 10% to pierce, notable, so keep that in mind. And then the resistance to status elements, 50% to confusion, immobilize, and then 10% to disable, which is actually kind of important in the broad scheme of things. Disable is so prevalent in the game at the moment between King Mon and Dwayne, and he even has it in his own kit potentially, that being able to maybe mitigate some disable resistances is really important. So the DPS report card, this is a really fun thing I've done recently. The effective HP stat I'm about to talk about is essentially your HP, but it's adjusted for your resistances, defense, and SPR, where you don't look at a character just for their health pool, you look at for essentially how much damage it takes to actually bring the health pool to 0 of that certain type. And without getting into the math of it, you kind of normalize it, and this makes sense in a lot of analysis, but kind of hard to put into layman's terms. But bottom line, effective HP, A-. He's got a ton of HP. That's part of it, where not only does he have a lot of base HP, but he does have passives that can boost it pretty significantly. So overall, in conjunction with the high weapon resistances, A-. In terms of physical versus magic, it's about the same. They're both pretty equal. He has no innate defense or SPR, so that's kind of a red flag that you need to equip it on him potentially, but other than that, nothing too crazy. The high HP pool really buoys his overall survivability. The primary stat is a B+, so I put him next to Orin and Tidus, and I did Rob as well, and Zazan ends up in this 661 range, putting on these two passives. Orin is super higher because I have self-sacrifice on as a high end, where he ends up at 847, and then Tidus is at 539 with some of his, and obviously Tidus is more dependent upon the crit damage and the crit rate up to get his overall TPS output up, but long story short, 661 is not bad. It's not the best, definitely way above average though, so B+ it is. Certainly not hurting for it. The agility stat, crazy. He gets an A for this. I think it's the second highest agility in the game. I'm a big fan of agility right now in the state of the game with the power creep of what we've seen for some of the more recent units, and then with the dark meta coming and what Omega does, as well as the Black Rose Lana card, agility is just such an important thing that almost every character has to have it in order to really be competitive. So he is at definitely top of the charts. Accuracy is outstanding. He is the most innately accurate character of all the URs in the game, like by far. So this third column here is the innate accuracy. Is at 179% on the average of 148. If you want to know more about these percentages and the evasion percentages I'm about to talk about, link in the description below, but I also have it in the tile at the end of the video. If you were to put their passives on some of these characters, yes, he does fall slightly behind, but most of these builds aren't feasible for these characters by and large. Long story short, he's incredibly accurate, and that's due to the luck stat, way above average. Like, it's the highest in the game, not even freaking close to anybody else. And the dexterity stat, he's also a little bit above average, so dexterity will help him with his crit rate, and so you can use a little love, still boosting that for some damage output, but overall, both are well above average. Evasion is an A+. It's an A+. No one's going to get better than him, because as far as I know, he is and will be the most evasive UR in the game for quite some time. He is 7 percentage points higher than 2B. It's nuts, it really is. And part of what makes this particularly nuts is that he has better vision card synergy to help boost that evasion even higher than 2B can. So overall evasion, and you can see that agility stat I was talking about, 69 here. I think the highest is Nivlu. Yeah, so he's 69 is crazy, so you can finally see him all ranked up here, but the evasion is out of this world. I honestly don't know how it's going to affect the state of the game being that evasive, in addition to the Santa clothes we're going to get from the raid coming that we're well overdue for, so crazy power creep there as well. In terms of movement, it's an A, you saw the movement of 4, jump of 2. Passives are an A because he's got a bunch of them, and that's the best thing about this character in my opinion. There's a lot of versatility. That's how you can build him. The counter abilities, B+. There's one that I really like, but I don't know exactly how it's going to shake up, so I'm going a little conservative here, but B+ for now. The overall kit's an A-. There are some downsides where it is only slash damage, and it's really only single target. There's very little to none AoE, so there are some downsides. They're really not that bad, though, so A- overall. Final grade, A+. I don't know what else to give this character because he doesn't truly have any downsides. He's got things that obviously are a little bit one-dimensional, but even the things that are one-dimensional, there's really no flaws in this character by and large. I really mean that. It's kind of ridiculous. General thoughts. Incredibly hard to kill. That's no surprise. That's why they call him the Unkillable. So he's got the highest evasion rate in the game. He's got positive resist to magic and missile, which I highlight specifically because of the guaranteed hits in the game. Most of them are magic and missile, so the fact that he's not innately weak to them means he can take those hits like a champ, which is kind of crazy. He's got 2 sources of re-raise in the kit. One Immortal Spirit, the other one's an actual re-raise. And then he's in a large HP pool, like we were talking about with the effective HP, but his limit break also increases his HP. Now, with the quantity of that, really up for debate. I don't know exactly at this moment, but he's got a lot of HP, so it's hard to kill overall. And then the variety in builds is super important. We noticed this was 2B as well, where you could go either Toxic Evade, or you could do more of like a build defensively, and obviously still miss some attacks, not as many, but you just don't die as quickly as some of the harder hitting ones. And he's got up to 90 defense penetration, so you can build him that way if you want to be like a pure tank buster. You can go pure evade, Toxic Evade as well, and just dodge everything under the sun, or you could theoretically go to a really high defensive build as well with certain espers, certain equipment, certain passives. That's definitely feasible, and could be a tank potential character because he does have an aggro generating ability, so ton of variety in how you want to build him, whether DPS or a tank, and really there's a conversation to be had whether he, how good of a tank he is in the broad scheme of the game. Probably not great because he doesn't have any innate defense or SPR, but when you're an evade unit, kind of changes the profile a little bit. Tricky AI potentially because of movement and abilities, and I say that because smaller maps he's gonna like ooga booga straight ahead, which obviously very fitting. He's a berserker kind of persona, so he would want to charge straight ahead in a battle, no problems with that, but that can get you into trouble. It can throw off AI. Some maps don't cater well to it, and he doesn't really have any teammate buffing abilities, so in terms of making him directionally stay together or go a certain direction, really kind of difficult to do. So although the kit is pretty amazing, the AI and the movement actually might come back to kind of hurt him or make him move in ways that you obviously wish you could change, even though you can't. Spectacular stats, already went through all that. He revolutionizes the Earthcast. I really mean that word. The Earthcast is not the same without him. He changes the entire profile of it. And then finally, very little AoE ability. It's just something to keep note of, where if you do see him, unit resistance works really well because he doesn't really have an AoE. So that's the general thoughts in a nutshell. We're obviously going to go through more now. This is the class of job overview. So the passive abilities, this is what I was talking about. All 5 of these are amazing because you can either go evasive action, which is my favorite here for the extra agility, makes him faster, helps his evasion, actually gets 12% extra evasion, so that's a massive boost to it. Anything double digits or more is really big. But other than that, Sharpened Blade is unique to if you want to make him a tank buster. Viking Lore a little more well-rounded, where you can obviously boost the attack stat instead. Holy Knight's Protection also gives him the same HP that Viking Lore does, but also gives him defense like we were talking about. And if there's like a missile meta potentially, he does have this unyielding protection to increase missile resistance to his already 10% resist, which I could see him countering them pretty well when you consider move of 4 and jump of 2. The snipers aren't going to be able to maintain their range when you have a character like him just gunning straight ahead for you. So really great passive abilities overall. The counter abilities, this speed reflex is the one that I really think I love, but not quite sure yet. It's essentially a 30% chance for him to cast haste on himself. In my opinion, even though he's not the highest attack character, and he's single unit attacks, and even the modifiers on them leave a little bit to be desired, when you get that many turns because of your agility and the haste, you still increase your DPS output pretty significantly. So I like speed reflex a lot. It's definitely my favorite. But Paladin's Guard, again, when we're talking about that bulkier defensive build, Paladin's Guard is a great freaking ability where he's going to take less damage overall because of it. Fighting Spirit, do without. It's just not worth the berserk risk, and not worth the damage isn't that significant, so whatever. Now, Undying Fighter, the main job. This is where things get interesting. Ruinous Lash is a great ability for how cheap it is. It's got some half-decent range. It's probably the most range he gets in his whole kit. But 10 AP, 5 cast. The modifier is super low, 126%, but healing power down obviously has a really beneficial effect if you're attacking a tank that is alongside a healer. So this could be really important depending on how strong the healers are. Hamstringer, I'm not a big fan of this ability just because agility 25% down is not great. it's okay, but not as impactful. Triple split spinal blow, though, this one with the X upgrade is absolutely out of this world. This is a really daunting ability to like have to try to face. So it gives him defense penetration of 50. It also has a pretty decent modifier of 200%, guaranteed critical hit when attacking from behind, and then it's a triple hit, all for 22 AP. For like that cost for a triple hit ability where you can potentially chain, for a guaranteed potential critical hit when you're behind, on a decent modifier with a defense busting option, that's insane. That's a lot on an ability, so really something to look out for. The fake death is the re-raise ability. I obviously don't know the exact prioritization of this compared to the Immortal Spirit or the TMRs, so remains to be seen how beneficial it really is, but it's there. And then Backbreaker, this one's not bad. I just need to make sure that the AI actually knows to go around someone's back in order to try to get the disable when doing so. Where I am really interested to monitor this is in Zazan versus Zazan matchups, where because they're both such high evasion units, when you attack someone from the side, you get extra 15% accuracy, but when you attack from the back, you get an extra 30% accuracy. So I am intrigued to see if the AI of Zazan will go to the back of another evade unit to attack them to increase the odds of hitting, and if he does so, this becomes a much better ability where the AI will intentionally go behind people and very likely hit the disable proc. So this is really awesome. Kingpin Smash, great for the modifier. It's the strongest in the kit. It's got a half decent amount of range. I unfortunately don't know the height on this on the top of my head, but it's cheap. All of these are pretty cheap overall. So main job, does its job really well. The sub job I actually like a lot too. So the probably not optimal, but this is where his AoE comes in, where both of these abilities are AoE. And the low profile is a little bit niche, but I think it's really intriguing that you increase the AGI by 12% and then decrease your chance of being targeted. So this might have an effect somewhere, but I don't know if it's worth the trade-off of losing Immortal Spirit potentially. The sub job for the Viking, I would say never equip this unless you're doing like a pure brawl defensive build where you might use Rebellious Spirit, because other than that, these attacks are nothing to, they're whatever. They don't really add anything that he doesn't already have. But the sub job Paladin, this is where you're probably going to use him the most, if only because he's got Immortal Spirit here, but he also has the Taunting Blade potential as well. I could see a situation where, hypothetically, we're just talking about Rebellious Spirit for Viking. I think you probably do that here as well for Paladin, where you can just use Sentinel instead. It's really just a matter of 3 turns versus 1 turn, so optional. But either way, Taunting Blade and Immortal Spirit, the big ones that I think you can use the majority of the time. For the other character info, so his limit break, again, I need to know exactly how this works out from a math perspective. When it says increase HP by up to 40%, is it his base HP, is it current HP, is it total HP? Like, I don't know exactly, but either way, I'm pretty sure that's a great way for him to survive longer. I think this is actually probably a really good limit break for how he operates as a character. The cost is really cheap for a limit break, and it's got the most range in his kit. So the fact that it's such a long range also is really beneficial for him, so I like the limit break a lot. The TMR, more for a hybrid build of him, I'd imagine, where you are still going for some evasion, just not the toxic top tier kind, because it does have 15 evade on it, and it does have 8 defense, which is pretty nice. This TMR skill could be better. It's pretty damn good, though, because it does increase his modifier by up to an extra 25%. And the earth resistance penetration, I'm super intrigued by, because as far as I know, this is the first time in the game we've ever seen an element resist penetration. I don't know that there's many ways to stack earth resist in the game other than like an Esper or like maybe some vision cards, but even still, like, it's a little bit niche. Probably only using it for specific hybrid builds, but overall, yeah, probably not great, particularly because he's the only one that can use it, so do with that what you will. The master ability, though, increased slash resistance penetration of 20 for himself, which is awesome, because he can only use slash attack, so it's nice that he can at least cut through some of it no matter what, and then evasion rate of 5. The notable vision card synergy. So this is where things get kind of interesting. Solitary Lion's brand new. This is like by far and away the best one for him, guaranteed, no hand, hands down. Attack of 152, AP of 20 for Earth units. Increase attack of 10%, increase defense of 5, decrease your crit evade, so no big deal there. Whatever. Crit evade of 5%, menial. For Zazan, increases luck by 10% on the unit, so it is stackable with party effects. Also magic resistance 10%, so holy, like no big deal. You're going against the detonation blast of the Energist, like no big deal. This obviously will help him a little bit. For the Earth party members, increase Earth attack of 35, so massive buff there. And then increase accuracy of 13%, so really important for if there's any other Zazans on the enemy side of the field where the earth units can probably hit him a lot easier. And then also increases, and this is the most important, slash resistance penetration by 35, which puts him up to 55% slash resistance penetration. Means whatever your slash resistance is, if you stack it up to 60%, let's say, he's going to think it's 30%. He's going to cut right through it. Ballparking numbers. So really amazing card for him. The other ones, not necessarily great for him. They could be, but it's more for the party. Secrets to Heart gives you Earth attack up and luck 50%, so you could put it on him. It is still a really good card. Titan, really great card as well. Obviously, he doesn't get the full effect of it because it is meant for pierced units, but 25% or 25% modifier on the Man Killer also gives him 20 evade because he's an Earth unit, so a really great card. Dreams of Heroism, really great. AoE resist, it buffs up HP to the party a lot. Will buff up his HP as well if it's on him, so great card overall for the Earthcast units. And then thanks for the votes, probably niche, but I have it here just to bring some attention to it. It will give him Man Killer, but that's about it. It's only for using him with a water party, so ignore this card. It's just, I'm bringing it up because it's easily forgettable. But then finally, the Calum card, I could maybe see this in a Zazan versus Zazan build, where if a lot of people go for that Toxic Evade build of him, and you might opt for the more defensive, bulkier build, this card will give your Zazan extra slash resistance. It'll also give him dexterity buffs to him and the party, which will not only increase the critical chance, like critical hit rate, but dexterity also helps your accuracy. And then it gives an extra 25% accuracy to the whole party, so for Earth units. So if you're going for that bulkier build, trying to take it down the more evasive Zazan units, this card should actually tip the scales pretty heavily in your favor, so keep that in mind. Notable Esper synergies. There's probably a lot more Espers in this, don't get me wrong, but these are the 4 that come to mind for the most notable. Tetrasylphan's here just for the evasion of 25, as well as the accuracy of 12. I need to update this. It's more. Actually, I need to update this whole thing. I'm sorry. The stats on this are wrong. This is updated since. But either way, Tetrasylphan for the evasion. Golem is a great option as well because he's got pierce resistance of 25, which is what Zazan is weak to. It's got defense, human killer, a little bit of extra evasion here, crit evade. Overall, great card, great Esper to put on him. Odin's the DPS de facto Esper, where ton of agility, and then you can really build it to a multitude of different things, whether human killer, missile resist, slash attack up of 30, which is perfect for Zazan. Increased accuracy of 22% as well. Again, if that kind of evade versus evade matchup, this could go a long way. And then Death Machine, if you're going for the anti-missile build, where you're going to get defense of 15, missile resist at 25%, slash attack still of 15, and then I doubt you're going to see King Mont in a missile meta, but if there's a King Mont, like fire resistance 25%. Either way, like if you see a Mont around, like this Esper will help Zazan potentially if he's, you know, taking any fire attacks head on. Niche, but worth mentioning. Weapon optimization, really only one. It's Sasuke's Katana. These other two, it's Lynx's TMR, but really not economical to use a TMR slot for a weapon like this. And Kadachi is simply power crept by Sasuke's Katana. So of the Katana, me personally, I think I like the critical build the most because I still think 165 attack is a decent amount of attack. But being able to constantly proc critical hits and burst down people to make sure that you kill them and maybe force that cooldown on the other person to re-raise or full life or who knows what, really, really practical. Not much to say because it is pretty limited, and honestly that's kind of a demerit to the character where you don't get a ton of variety in the weapons like some other characters do. Now, we're going to talk about counters. It's tough. So the tough thing about counters is that because you can have multiple builds, there is no way to actually like know that you're going to counter him, because if you come in with a certain, anti-evade, turns out he's the brawl kind instead, well, you're not really countering what he does best. So that off the bat makes it tough. Obviously, pierced units are kind of the first ones that come to mind, given that he has the weakness to it. High accuracy units is a must as well, because he's so evasive, most instances. And then anything with courage or re-raise dispel is very potent. It really just is a matter of which one is he using, and then whether that character you're using actually even fits in your comp otherwise. But status effects, underrated one. Anytime there's a really strong character, in my opinion, status effects are a great way to take away what they do best, so that if you have someone and you can stop them or disable them, you can immediately take that DPS and influence the team fight out of the game. So we saw his status effects is paralysis, and it is immobilized with a little bit to disable. So yeah, if you can slow him so he doesn't get many turns because of the agility, if you can stop him, if you can blind him, these are all things that are vastly affect how much damage and how much influence he has in the team fight. And then finally, imperils. This is kind of a thing where you're going to benefit more from mono comps against mono comps, where if you can imperil someone by like a dark 38%, like we see with Helena or Dwayne, and you have other dark units there, that's a really easy way to potentially chunk them down. But even weapon imperils, where someone like Kane, who has got a pierce attack, down, well, Kane's pretty accurate, and he's weak to pierce, and if you can make that work, yeah, you're going to parallel against Pierce, you're going to hit him for a lot more. So overall, like, that's another way to go at it. The one that comes to mind immediately is 2B, in my opinion. Not only because she's wind, which is strong against the earth, but she does have the accuracy to hit him consistently. She does have slash attack down in her kit. She does have slash resistance up in her kit for herself and her allies. So there's a lot that she does that can potentially counter what he does. And even though you need some help externally to still win the team fight, she does a really damn good job of potentially taking him out. Uldoa to a very lesser degree, and I only throw her in here because I don't know about the Drain Force build on her, where you can probably bypass some of his resistances and whatnot, but she's also an evasive unit that should be able to hit him fairly easily, but yeah, ignore that. It's just worth, I'm just saying it. The Earth Synergies, though, this is where I think it's really interesting, where I say he revolutionizes the cast. So many Earth units are evade now, where prior to this, Winter Venera was probably the best evade unit, and she hasn't even gotten her X upgrade yet in Global, which she will soon. But Ketone really wasn't relevant for the majority of the game, and wasn't until up when Cloud was released in JP, where you kind of got a lightning meta that she thrived just a little bit. So now that you have 3 potential evade units and one of them is the best in the game, all of a sudden that changes the profile of casted characters pretty significantly. So Secrets to Heart and Titan are very, very applicable, as opposed to someone like 2B, where her Near card, you either choose, I either like get rid of all the attack and the defense penetration and whatnot on the card and use Secrets to Heart so that everyone can evade, or I keep her with the 35% luck compared to the 50% luck of Secrets to Heart. So Zazan immediately gets more luck out of that card than she will out of her own. And then Titan is way more applicable to the Earthcaster characters than Shiva is in whatever you're fitting in, because although the 20% evasion of Shiva is nice, you obviously have to put her on a magic unit, and the card doesn't really bring any other benefits, and they're not, it's a little more niche and hard to get full benefit out of. But the Titan card with the Man Killer on physical attack, like, yeah, that's primo. Mirage is also still in the way, which is super interesting. He's very, very similar, where he's a very slash-heavy character. He does have courage as well. He's also pretty tanky and proc some aggro. So the fact that they do overlap could be a bad thing, but also could be a good thing, where you get some of those synergies off the vision cards. And then Luelle in particular, a really interesting synergy, where she is kind of a defensive brawler, where she can give him unit resist, earth attack, AP increase. They both have healing power down, so if you do see a healer, you can pick and choose which one of them you want to be your person for the healing power down. So some variety there, but interesting to pair them next to each other nonetheless, particularly because she's a magic user and can put on some cards that other Earth units might not be able to. And then finally, the vision cards no longer look as bad as they initially I thought. So a lot of the Earth vision cards are things like accuracy up and crit damage up and evasion. And you look at this thing and you're like, dude, the Earth units number one, don't even have an identity. But number two, these don't make them that much better than they already are. But now, Earth units really do have an identity, and it revolves around Zazan. And you can really see how these vision cards actually might cater into what he does best and what he can enable the cast characters to do. So that's the review in a nutshell. There's a ton to do here. There's still a ton that we don't know, but I at least wanted to talk about it because it is a whole bunch of new interactions, obviously, and potentially meta changing. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but at the very least, thanks for watching the review. Hopefully this was informative. Per usual, comments, critiques, questions all below. Love to hear about your experiences with them so far, and looking forward to doing some more content soon. So if you're pulling for them, good luck, and I'll talk to y'all later.